Yeah, I'm sort of
Okay. I see Art FM just popped something here. Hang on. Gotta gotta switch. I've got one keyboard controlling three different computers here, so I have to switch back and forth here. It's like, okay, because I got the little pop-up saying, hey, we're recording.
Well, welcome everybody. This is a great crowd already. Fantastic. Thanks for being here.
There you are.
Hi. Yeah, always a couple minutes late. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I see that we've gone overboard here because our my Brady Bunch here is going to the next page here. Let's see.
All right. Fantastic. That's good news.
Wow. Wow, do we have what? 25. We
A
have
few familiar faces out there.
we got about maybe 50 people on here, it looks like, or
Never seen me before.
Killer. That's awesome. Hey, Todd.
how's it going?
Hey, it's gone all right. Been kind of a crazy night. It's been one of those, I think everything just blew up today. So, but in a good way, But hi, everybody. Welcome. We're just letting everybody kind of file in a little bit. We'll start in a couple minutes. But it's kind of cool to see some of these names and see folks tuning in from all over the country. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm 18 and I'm building myself an LPFM. I actually have ADHD and autism, so I'm doing a lot of stuff here around.
That's awesome. Great. Yeah, congratulations on
Thank
taking
you.
Initiative at such a young age. That's killer. Way to
Yeah,
go.
there's only one other station here that's WNEG. It's 93.1 AM 630. It's a classic kid station here in where I live. So
Cool. Sounds like it needs something different.
well, once you get that thing built and up and running and on the air, you definitely have to attend a grassroots radio conference and maybe do a workshop.
Yeah.
I think this would be, from what you've told me already, I think this would be a fantastic workshop.
Yeah.
Basically show, doesn't matter how young you are or what challenges you have in your life. If you put your heart to it, regardless of whether it's for radio or for something else, you can do it.
yeah.
Totally. What a great way to start the meeting, Michelle. Thank you for that inspiration. Well, let's all just embrace that and think about that for a minute, because what you all are about to embark on is, one of the wildest adventures I think you could possibly imagine. And every single day is another adventure you never could have possibly imagined. But radio, LPFM radio is just a really amazing community builder, communicator, magical device. It really is. You can, kind of do anything you want with it. You can create worlds with it. You can travel to different locations through it. Nowadays, you can have people broadcasting from different locations into your station, wherever you might be based. So it's a really amazing opportunity that we have in front of us, this LPFM opportunity. And it's coming up really quickly, and that's like both a blessing and a curse. It's really cool that it's happening, and it's happening now, but it's been a really quick notice from the FCC to get the word out to different nonprofits across the country that this is happening. So we thank you all for being here and being aware of it, and we hope you'll activate on some of the things you've learned today, and maybe let some other people know in your, either in your local community or in your network of nonprofits that you might know, because there's not a lot of time left. But really important that we act on this, because we don't know if there's going to be another opportunity for community stations to apply again anytime in the near future on a nationwide basis. So this is it's like kind of now or never. So we appreciate you being here and being willing to maybe act really quickly. I guess we can go ahead and get started. My name is Sharon Scott. I'm the co-founder of WXOX LP in Louisville, Kentucky. I say co-founder. My husband and my teenage son are the other co-founders. We are family radio as it gets. In fact, we did a live remote tonight, and I was in studio minding the board while my husband and son were out, in the field, live broadcasting an event that just totally popped up for us about 2 days ago. We got asked to live broadcast. Jim James of My Morning Jacket was performing here at the Festival of Faiths for their opening ceremonies, and they just kind of reeled us in at the last second, asked if we would be interested, and of course we were. So that's a pretty big deal for us. And things like that, we we also had another interview happen earlier this week with Matmos, who's working with the Smithsonian Folkwaves collection to kind of rehash and remake new music out of their audio sounds in their collection. And that was a really exciting opportunity for us as well. And I just bring those kind of things up. This is all just been in 1 week that these things have just popped on our radar and we've done. And I bring that up because that is part of the importance of FM. A lot of people ask, well, why go FM when you can broadcast online, without the license or anything like that. But I really think having the FM license for us has given us some credibility and some access to some more interesting events, bigger stars, and then as a result, attracting more listeners to our station. So that's just one of the many ways I think that FM is super important, even in this age of digital broadcasting, but still embrace the digital field. So we have about 120 DJs at our radio station. They're all volunteers and they all do different things. They all have a radio show that sounds completely different than their neighboring radio show. And they're coming from all ages, all backgrounds, all segments of our community. So the station is sounding different every couple hours. And that to me is the beauty of it, because you tune in and you don't know what you're going to hear. And even me as a station manager, I don't necessarily always know what I'm going to hear. So it's a lot of fun. It's really been a great community builder for us at bringing all these people together in segments of our society, and lots of bands and art projects and literary collaborations have happened through people who have met at the station. We've been able to amplify the really amazing people in our community, the artists. We're Art FM, so we're focused on the arts, but we really have a broad vision of what art is. A mathematician and a scientist can be artists as well, so long as they're being creative in their field. So we just feel like it's been a really important resource for our community. There was no college or community radio station here before we started. And there was no opportunity for community members to get on the airwaves and express themselves and share the things that were important to them, talk about the ideas that were important to them. And
watching the webinar.
Hey, welcome. So I just want to welcome you all and tell you that it's been, for us, we've been now 10 years. We applied in the last LPFM window, which was 10 years ago. So this is really a rare opportunity. And it's been a wonderful, exciting, crazy decade. And I would just really encourage you all to give it a try. Tonight we'll just be going over with the basic steps and things like that. And I think we're going to kind of keep the beginning of the webinar pretty succinct and straightforward so we can record that and share it with others that might not be able to be here tonight. And then when it's done, we can go back and answer any questions that you might have. And that way, if people need to drop off the line, they can. But I think a few of us are willing to stay here and kind of answer all the questions you have afterwards. So again, thank you for joining us. Todd Urick of Common Frequency has helped organize this session. Many of you probably know Todd because even though he is one of the prime engineers in the LPFM world, we've got Michelle Bradley on the line as well, who also does a lot of LPFM engineering. It's a very specialized world of radio. I'm not sure if Michael Brown is on here, but he's another fellow. But we can introduce you to these folks who can really help you with your LPFM application and guide you with your steps when you're working with the FCC. But while Todd should probably be behind the scenes, working on maps and finding out, what people need to do to apply for their licenses, he's been out actually picking up the phone and emailing and just reaching out to random nonprofits in cities that really need a community radio station. He's been picking up the phone, calling people saying, hey, apply for this thing. This is our one shot. We got to try to go for it now. We can think about how we're going to build our stations later, but let's try to grab these licenses while we can for the communities. So I just want to introduce Todd quickly. Todd, could you take it away? Tell us a little bit about Common Frequency and what you all are up to.
Hi, I'm Todd. So Common Frequency's been around for, I can't even remember. It's been like 15 years or so. I don't know. But I was involved in college radio and got really interested in college and community radio. And at that time, there was very few sources to figure out like how to get involved and create your own station. and we were more geared towards very DIY, punk rock, like just grassroots, like getting on the air with the license, just regular folks playing all types of music and all types of ideas. And we started to progress, and we're now we've been a full 501(c)(3) for several years, um, helping people start radio stations in different places. It's mainly been on the West Coast, but we've been doing a lot more outreach on the East Coast now, and I think that's one of the things that I kind of fret is that just getting the information out there, it's not, most people don't know about this opportunity. And sometimes it's hard to convey that opportunity to people that have never heard that you're able to license your own stations at times. So in the past 2 months, it's been a little bit hectic because I've been trying to organize kind of cold call outreach to places. And occasionally you get the person that's just like, I've been waiting for this for 10 years. And then other times you're just like, you get people that are just like, I don't understand this. Why was this station? But it's nevertheless, it's a it's kind of awkward. I don't know. I'm kind of a behind the scenes kind of person, willing to help anybody in need, any question, even at the last minute. I hate saying that because I don't know. I guess I'm a little masochistic or something. I bring this on, but the we try to get people on the air. I mean, try to get people to
Yes.
apply and help them any way we can and answer their questions. So this last ditch resource um, for just the most DIY stuff out there. And I think those voices are important. It shouldn't be that you have to have a bunch of money to get on the air, but sometimes that's the reality of it. But no, but and just supporting very diverse community voices out there. So um, anyhow, we do applications along with other people. Um, you don't have to, if we don't care about the applications part. We can recommend you to other people to do the applications. Our we're not here to make or anything, but we do applications for donations. And I don't know. Any questions later I can answer.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Todd. I think I'm going to dive into, I've actually pulled together a PowerPoint, which isn't really my thing, but I did that just to try to keep everything together and let you all actually see kind of the things you're going to have to go through, which I don't think are too intense. And there's not a lot of time, obviously, but I feel like it's all doable. So let me make sure I share my screen and all that stuff. Okay, hang on 1 second. Share the right thing, of course. Okay. All right. Are we seeing a PowerPoint type of thing?
Yeah, I see it as well.
Great. So so this should tell you about the application dates. The new dates are December 6th through the 13th. That is this year, actually. So we've got less than a month before this thing opens. And I guess closes, huh? Okay, I just changed something. Is everybody still seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let me know at any point if you aren't hearing me or if my signal is scratchy or if you don't see my PowerPoint. Please feel free to interrupt. But otherwise, I did try to just go ahead and mute everybody because we were getting a weird white noise sound. So just please make sure my mics are muted. But I mean, if there's like an immediate question and you really want to know something on that particular slide, do feel free to jump in. But let's save the more general questions to the end, if that's cool. And Todd will probably be the one to answer all those. Okay, so the LPFM stands for Low Power FM, and this was something that is such a beautiful movement. If you could learn about the LPFM history and how it came about, and how there were pirate broadcasters basically realizing there were small spots on the FM dial and kind of claiming those spots for the community. And it's a little convoluted history, but ultimately they basically told the FCC, you need to allow us an opportunity to license these legally, or we're going to continue go on and create our stations illegally. So, and they, led by the Prometheus Radio Project, I believe Will Floyd and maybe Pablito from the Prometheus Radio Project might be on the line here. Incredible nonprofit organization that came out of a pirate station, Radio Mutiny, that readapted itself and focused on getting the LPFM movement to happen and the passage of the Local Community Radio Act, which finally passed in 2010 and made room. And finally, you know, these radio activists convinced the FCC through art and activism, and lots of other groups joined in along the way. It became a really, you know, incredible movement in history. But they came together and made this opportunity for nonprofit organizations to apply for small spots on the FM dial in between the larger full power stations. This December 6th through 13th, the FCC will open a window for new LPFM applications. And you, if you're a nonprofit, will be able to apply for one of these frequencies to build a new station and amplify the voices of your community. You don't just have to be a nonprofit. There's a few other things you can be, which we'll get into in a minute. But for generally speaking, I'll be speaking in terms of nonprofit, but you understand that that might mean a few other things as well. The maximum power of an LPFM is going to be, it's a formula basically. You get 100 watts at 100 feet. At our radio station, we went higher than 100 feet. We're something like 120 feet, but it made us have to go down to 87 watts. So Todd's probably checking my math and going, no, that's not what it is, but it's something of that nature. So if you go up higher on a tower, then you have to bring your wattage down. If you're lower on the tower, you can have more wattage. And people like Todd and Will and Pablito and Michelle could tell you that stuff. That's the kind of stuff you're going to need to want to talk to an engineer about to get the best sounding signal. This is just a little setup we did. There's a part 15 transmitter, which is basically the only legal option you have if you don't have a license. And it's a very small transmitter that you can basically broadcast to your front yard with that. But it's fun to experiment. And this, if you can barely see it, is our coverage map. I think I show that more later in Louisville. With our LPFM signal, we are able to cover the entire metropolitan area of Louisville, Kentucky. We're right downtown and we get inside the Beltway. And depending on which direction, we go actually up almost 30 miles up into Indiana. So it all depends on the science and the terrain and the weather, I think, the troposphere and all this stuff you'll learn about. So here's one of the beautiful pieces that the Prometheus Radio Project organized in front of the Capitol. They brought all these, radios, and I'm sure someone could tell you the entire story of it because I wasn't actually there, but this is the type of thing they were doing, these visual demonstrations in Washington and marches and things like that, bringing attention to the fact that community members did not have access to the airwaves in the United States, at least not very much, and really petitioned Congress and the FCC. It was really Congress that made the law to finally allow this to happen. And that passed in 2010, and it was signed by President Obama, the Local Community Radio Act. And here, I don't know if you can see, probably not, if you can see all the organizations that signed on to this. So, by the way, are you all seeing the whole menu of the PowerPoint, or are you just seeing the one slide type of thing?
We're seeing the whole menu.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see if this works.
Like I was going to say, the little picture you showed just a second ago for the Part 15. I actually have two of those actually here on my desk. I got my low power FM is 100 milliwatts, and I also have my Talking House transmitter with me as well.
Yeah, the Talking Houses. That's awesome. Cool. Well, am I better with the PowerPoint now?
Yes. Okay,
awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. Yeah, that's fun. I'd love to hear all about that. I really like Part 15. It's a lot of fun to play with. So as I mentioned, this is going to be, whoops, hold on. Now I got it like doing the thing. Okay. Are we good? Does it look right? Okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you. Sorry.
It looks like you went backwards in the slides, though. I don't know if
Okay.
you wanted to
Yeah,
do
thank
that.
you. Okay, there we go. I did. Yeah, thank you. At least you're paying attention. I appreciate that.
Here you go.
I
Oops.
don't know
Went
why.
back again.
Oh, I know what's happening. I'm like playing the thing instead of just like, hold on. Um,
Maybe I can help you. Just hit the air, yeah, the area there.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, guys.
There
Like
we
I
go.
said, I'm not really.
Oh,
I know. I just gotta stop it. That's what.
oh, it's going automatic for you.
Yeah. So it's getting away from me. The AI.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, here's a bunch of the organizations and individuals that supported the Low Power Community Radio Act. It's very interesting to see this. Obviously, a lot of people, supporting different cultures and different voices that maybe haven't been on the FM airwaves before. It's really, it's interesting to look back at the history of FM radio and see how predominantly white male the field is. Not to bust on any of our guys, but this is a really great opportunity to get some different and diverse voices on the airwaves. And that's kind of what this whole movement is about. And a lot of the reason why Todd and I brought this whole thing together, because we'd really like to see some different voices on the airwaves, unique things happening with the radio waves. I think, a lot of people want that. But you can look on here and see some really interesting musicians signed on to this. Bonnie Raitt, Jackson Brown, Mike Watt, Ian McKay. So, you're seeing, that's just to throw out, there's a few superstars that really got behind this thing too. So pretty cool. All right, now I'm losing control of the whole thing again. Let's see if it stays there. This is the public announcement about the window, the new date. We bought ourselves a month, actually, thanks to Todd. It likes that one. Thanks to Todd, we bought ourselves a month on the filing window. He really spearheaded a campaign to convince the FCC we needed a little bit more time to let people know about this movement. So that's what happened. And that's why we have actually today, and the window isn't already closed. And that's why you all still have the opportunity. So pretty cool that the FCC actually responded very quickly to that and gave the extension within a month. And a lot of great, you can see there at the bottom, a lot of great organizations signed on to that as well. And you'll get to know some of these organizations, hopefully, during your journey. So, okay, back to just the basics of who can apply for this and what they need to do. As I mentioned, nonprofit organizations can apply for this. Pretty much all nonprofits can apply, no matter what your focus, your mission is. There will be a few stipulations and qualifications that we'll get into. But no matter what type of nonprofit you have, you can apply. Educational institutions can apply. Tribal groups can apply, and government agencies can apply. Beyond that, I think, Todd, is there anyone else that can apply for one of those? Not that I know. If there are, let me know. Jump in, tell me.
That's the main areas.
Yeah, these are the main areas. And nonprofit organizations that have an educational purpose, who are going to use the station to advance an educational program, that uses the station to advance their educational objectives through over-the-air teaching and instruction. And we can get into that because that's a formality. Educational institutions are qualified based on their accreditations. You've got tribal groups, basically tribal governments and such like that, for service on that covers tribal lands, and government agencies that are going to use the stations for a public safety purpose.
Yes, and there's a couple things in there that educational institutions, for the most part, almost always, an organization can only have one LPFM station or one broadcast station at all if one of them is an LPFM. Kind of a weird rule where big commercial organizations can have as many radio stations as they want, but our little nonprofits, we can only have one. However, there are a couple stipulations there in that educational institutions, if you are with a university and that university has a radio station that is, say, all NPR, as unfortunately many college radio stations got taken over by NPR, but that's a whole different webinar.
So one got taken over by GPB.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's a problem. It's a dark secret of NPR. But anyway, if you're with a college station that has or an educational institution that has an NPR type station that is not run by the students, you can apply for an LPFM for the students to run. And also tribal groups within their territory can apply for an additional station, and government agencies that are safety-based, where there's no other applicants in the area, can apply for a frequency. Is that correct, Michelle? Did I get that close?
You're pretty close. Yeah, the tribal entities can have up to 2 to serve their tribal lands. And for public safety, it's a little more complex. They can have as many stations as they want within their jurisdiction. One can be classified as a priority station, so that way that one would compete with other applicants if there's competing applicants. The other ones, that if there's competing applicants filing, those public safety applications will be dismissed right off the top.
Okay, cool. Well, I would say if we have anyone who's kind of like, an exception to the rule, tribal groups or government agencies, we can definitely get with you with some more detail. Otherwise, I'm going to keep it kind of general for like basic nonprofits.
And I was going to ask one question about that. This is a really big question for me, but for otherwise, translator wise, can I ask you about that? Translator wise for LPFMs, does it have to be a certain ways out of the signal?
Let's hold on. I'm going to pause you right there and say that there has not yet been any translator opportunity for LPFMs. And so I think that let's save that for a future webinar, unless some reason that is going to affect your LPFM application right now.
All right.
Is that cool? And then Michelle can talk to you for days about that. I know. Or we can save that to the end if you all want to talk about that.
Well, the bottom line is an LPFM can get a translator if they purchase one from somebody else. And there are specific rules regarding translators that are commonly owned by the LPFM licensee. And again, that's probably good for the That's probably going to be good for the LPFM 201 class.
There we go. All right, so y'all stay tuned. This is not the end, just the beginning. People who cannot apply for an LPFM are individuals cannot apply. If you want one, you have to form a nonprofit, and there still actually is a crazy quick opportunity. You have to hustle, but you could do it. But you cannot apply if you're just an individual, and no businesses that are for-profit entities can apply either. So just to clarify. Oh, now I'm back to that again. Hold on, sorry, everybody. I wish I could see what I'm doing. Now, are you seeing the full presentation now?
Yes.
We see it.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Asking. I'm sorry. It's like getting away with me. All right. So organizational requirements, things that your organization will have to be or have in order to claim one of these LPFMs. And the first thing is that it has to be local. And FCC's definition of local is that the organizational headquarters must be within 10 miles of the transmitter site, or 75% of the board members must live within this area. And I know that Todd and Michelle are out there going, wait, there's a stipulation to this.
Yeah, there's a couple stipulations here.
And the first is that there's a 10 miles applies to if you're in the Nielsen top 50 markets. If you're outside of those top markets, that 10 miles increases to 20 miles.
Also, too, can I just quickly
Sure,
ask,
go ahead.
Is there anybody on this call right now from Puerto Rico? Okay.
I hear a heartbeat sound. That's cool. We did get people signed up from Puerto Rico. So
yeah, okay, because we've got some new guidance on Puerto Rico that we're going to be publishing here in the next couple days.
Okay,
so,
cool. Again, special cases like that. Let's save that towards the end. Okay, your organization or none of their board members can have any ownership in any interest of any other broadcast licenses, daily newspapers, or cable TV systems. So if you guys already, if you're a big corporate, media conglomerate, you cannot own an LPFM, or if your family is.
Well, what's those? I'm just going to ask about this, but cable TV systems?
Oh no, let's okay.
Well, if you're the if you have if you have a significant share, if you have like a significant amount of Comcast stock, for example, that would possibly bring in some possible issues there.
So if you're concerned about that, or you're concerned about that your board members may, have deep pockets with media interests, that's something you definitely want to investigate, and you're going to want to talk to all your board members and, make sure that that's not the case.
Don't worry, my board members are my parents.
Okay, cool. All right. And so, so basically they want the LPFMs to be in the hands of groups that don't have any other organizations. This is okay. So again, these were what we talked about earlier about the exceptions, the folks that can have more than one LPFM. So I think I'm just going to skip that one. Okay. Board expectations. There are a few things the FCC is going to ask that your board, an LPFM license holder, uphold these things. And one is that 80% of the board members have to be U.S. citizens. Anyone who has a record of being dishonest with the FCC cannot serve on the board of the LPFM. Anyone who has had a felony of crimes involving discrimination or providing fraudulent statements to the U.S. government cannot be on the board of an LPFM. The board of directors cannot have a conviction that has resulted in the loss of federal benefits under the U.S. Anti-Drug Act. And the directors cannot have engaged in the operation of an unlicensed broadcast station.
Yep.
So you cannot be Pete Treatish.
Go back to that previous slide.
I will do. Okay.
Yeah.
No pirates allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, hold on. There we go. No,
yeah.
good.
Okay. On bullet points 2 and 3 there, what I'm going to say is that if there is a possibility, like, for example, if something happened 25 years in the past, I would say get in touch with an attorney, because in those cases, I would say still file, but disclose, because you could disclose. You can answer no to those questions and disclose the full story. It's just going to take a lot longer for the FCC to decide what to do. On bullet point 4, that applies also if you're currently under a denial of benefits. Now, if you go through the federal system, and if it's for something like possession or small time something, they'll usually give you like a suspension of like 1 year or 3 years denied benefits. This is basically the same thing for student loans. But if you're like a major big time trafficker or something like that, yeah, you may get a lifetime ban. So again, with those 3 items, consult a communications attorney.
Hopefully it doesn't apply to anyone here.
I shouldn't.
But what you really want to make sure it doesn't apply to any of your board members. And these can be kind of difficult questions to ask, like, have you, been convicted of a felony? So what we did with ArtFM is we actually made a very short bullet point list of this, and we had our board members sign that, that they didn't have any of these problems with their record or whatever. And that was an easy thing because I could just pass it out to the board and say, go home, take this, sign it, bring it back to me. And that way, if any of them did have something weird in their background, it didn't have to be, they had to confess to the whole board. They could kind of quietly tell me, and I could quietly say, well, then you need to resign from the board, because that is what's going to happen. They would have to resign from the board, and they would serve the organization in a different way. They could still be involved, but they just couldn't be on the board.
Also, that last item is a fatal. So what happens is let's say you do put somebody on the board, and it turns out that, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they received a notice of unlicensed operation. Somebody else who's challenging you calls you out on that, and you try to remove them from the board. You can't do that anymore. You used to be able to do that, but you can't do that anymore with a rule change that took place between the 2 windows.
Okay, good.
That is a fatal error.
And that can actually be a problem because people who are interested in LPFMs may have, toyed around in the pirate radio world. So you just need to be extremely careful. Again, make sure none of your board members have gotten caught with anything like this, or there's no way anyone can find out that you all have, or anyone has been doing this. So this is really a big deal. There's more pirate broadcasters than you would actually imagine. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, well, the FCC just announced 3 pirates. Basically, was it $6 million worth of fines today? So yeah, that's
so there's a we found. I mean, we had someone pirating on our sig. We had the hot rod show at the fairgrounds was pirating on our broadcast signal. And they were like overwhelming our signal right after we got on the air, not too long after we got on the air. And I think they had been doing that for years. And because our signal had been blank, nobody noticed it. But anyway, it was a funny conversation when I talked to them about that. They said they'd do me a favor and stop broadcasting. I said, I'll do you a favor and not call the FCC. Anyway, so yeah, there's that, but most of the time, pirate broadcasters, my experience, have been religious broadcasters. But also most of the LPFM applicants are religious broadcasters, and also most of the folks on the non-commercial dial are religious broadcasters. So let's just say religious broadcasters really recognize the value of broadcasting. So this is at a grassroots radio conference. Michelle was talking about that earlier, about this wonderful conference that happens once a year, hosted by a different community radio station at their station and in their city. This was in Rochester, New York, which was the one right before the pandemic. And that is actually Pete Treatish there, founder of Radio Mutiny and the Prometheus Radio Project. He had a really fun workshop where he would like break something and try to get the participants to figure out how to fix it. I think that's what's going on there. And then you see Otis McClay in the background. He's with the Pacifica Network, which is a really great network of community radio stations that share a lot of information, programming, webinars, things like that. So if you carry on in this journey, the Pacifica Network might be a great place to get involved. And the rest of these folks, I think, are folks that run different LPFMs. So yeah, GRC is a lot of fun. Okay, so this is the list of what you're going to have to get together. You're going to want to contact. I'm highly recommending that you contact either an engineer or an advocate, somebody who knows about the LPFM process and has been through it before and can assist you with your application. You may or may not need an engineering study, an actual scientific waiver with your application. We'll get into that in a second. But I personally just highly recommend working with someone like Michelle or Todd or the Prometheus Radio Project or Brown Broadcast Services. I don't get any kickback or anything from any of these people. I just happen to know, I've been working in this world a while. I've seen their work. They all do really good work. They're all going to really work with your budget. They want community radio stations on the air, and they're going to work with you to make it happen. And there just, to be honest, aren't a lot of engineers that specialize in this kind of community broadcasting. So these are the folks I know, and I'll be welcome to, share any other recommendations that they or other people have when we wrap up at the end. So gathering all the pieces. Once you connect with that advocate, again, I'd recommend that you would, but you don't have to. You need to get these pieces together before the application window opens. You want to have everything ready to go. When that window opens, there's only 1 week. You have to get everything in. And if you don't, you've missed your chance. There's no going back. Or if you forget any of these pieces, some of them, most of them here are fatal errors that will get your application dismissed if you don't have them, and you will not have an opportunity to try again or add it later or anything like this. So this is where you really want to pay attention. You need to have state registered organizational documents or some type of government charter. This, for most nonprofits, is going to be your articles of incorporation. And Michelle, or Todd, do you guys want to jump in on that point? Just briefly, let's not get off into, intricacies, but
bottom line is a couple things. Number one is your organization has to be in good standing at the time of the last day of the window. That's called the snapshot date. So if your organization was suspended because maybe they forgot to file an annual report, you got to get that squared away before the filing window. And otherwise, that is a fatal. That will cause your application to be dismissed. Also, the FCC will accept, and we talked about this at the GRC meeting with Al Sangenis, is the extract, which is the little page off the state's website where you can go look up corporations. You can use that to demonstrate. But if you do have a copy of the Articles of Incorporation, you can definitely upload those if you have those. You don't have to do like the whole bylaws and all the annual reports and stuff like that, but just something that shows that the corporation is good. I would also include the extract just to prove that the organization is currently in good status.
Okay, and most nonprofits are going to have articles of incorporation. If you don't, there's a problem probably with the organization. You're going to need the names and residential addresses of all the controlling members of your organization. In a nonprofit, that's going to be your board of directors,
as well as the email addresses and telephone numbers.
Okay, so contact information for them, and they're going to need the actual residential addresses. This is especially if you're trying to prove that you're local through where the board members live. So that's going to be important. Educational statement. Now this gets a little more, convoluted, I guess. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to provide a statement to the FCC that tells them basically how your nonprofit is an educational nonprofit. You may not have an educational charter. They may not say anything about education in your mission. That's okay. But you just need to explain in words to the FCC how your organization is an organization that educates people and how you will use over-the-air instructional broadcasting to educate your community. And you are highly recommended to provide sample programs, like make up some programs that you think would be cool. You want to be realistic, but you also will not be held to that. They're not going to come back in 10 years and say, or do you have this program on the air? But they want to see about the type of programming that you're thinking about putting on the airwaves. And then it would be also a good idea to include a hypothetical schedule of what your week might look like on air. Michelle, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, I posted in the chat a link to a sample educational statement that you could use kind of as just to kind of get your gears going. But yeah, the educational statement, as I said a little earlier, has to basically explain what your organization what your organization's educational objectives were before broadcasting. And I know this is hard for community radio, but when you think about it, the educational service was created in the 1940s. It wasn't created for community radio. It was created for school systems. It was because of challenges, mainly by religious broadcasters in the 50s, that non-school systems are able to have stations under the educational guidelines. And then you have to explain how the radio station is going to advance those educational objectives through over-the-air teaching or instruction. You cannot say, we're going to do a broadcast school, we're going to bring in high school kids and have them, learn how to run the board and manage the station and such. If that's the only thing you're depending on, the FCC will reject that. Sharon's points around sample programming, name a program, and just a quick, maybe 1 or 2 sentences on how the program will instruct or teach. And this is something that the FCC is either going to pay very close attention to, or they're just going to rubber stamp it because they've got a lot of applications to work. So we don't know how staff is going to handle it. The staff has basically changed positions in the past 10 years on how they're handling these things. So just keep in mind, though, that this educational statement, you are not bound to it. This is a 1940s, 1950s formality to get you through the door. The rules specifically state that you could run any amount of entertainment or educational programming that you want. So this is a formality to get you through the door. Once you're on the air, the First Amendment kicks in.
Okay, great. And the First Amendment is your best friend in American broadcasting.
Yes.
That's very valuable. So make sure you know that backwards and forwards, what your rights are. But the other thing to note about the educational statement is that when we applied at ArtFM, I think we wrote like a 40 page educational statement, hoping we would convince the FCC that we were the ones they wanted to give the frequency to. But unfortunately, or fortunately, the FCC cannot weigh in on that. And they can't decide someone's educational statement is better and they're going to use the frequency better. Again, this goes back to the First Amendment. So they're, like Michelle said, they're just going to check to see that you have it. You're not going to be able to sway them with this in any direction.
Right. Yeah. It's all done on metrics.
And let's let Todd chime in here. Todd?
Oh, just a footnote. I've had transfers of licenses held up because the educational statements weren't that good, and I've had to revise them. But at other times, once I got an application through with an educational statement that was like one sentence, but it's kind of pushing it that way. So you never know. Better be safe than sorry.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And it's also, kind of a good exercise just to think about what you want your station to be and what you might want to make happen. So have fun with it is what I would say. The stuff that maybe is not so fun and much more difficult for those of us who aren't technically minded are finding your tower site and finding your channel. And then you're also, of course, gonna have to find the person. If you find a tower site, you need to make sure that whoever owns that property is okay with you putting your antenna and your transmitter there, maybe building a tower. And so you'll need to, once you find that location, you'll need to talk with that landlord and basically, Michelle described it, have a meeting of the minds with the landlord. You want to talk to them, make sure they are agreeable to it. And you don't have to get a lease. Todd recommends don't even talk about numbers, about renting it, how much this is going to cost, because that could muddy the waters. You just want the person to say, yeah, we will let you put your antenna on our property. And you don't even need to get it in writing or anything. I kind of recommend, I think it's maybe not a bad idea to have something in writing saying that they're going to let you put the antenna there, but that is not required for your LPFM application. You will need to provide their name and phone number. And from what I understand, there is a good chance the FCC or one of your competitors may actually call that person and make sure that they're okay with you putting your antenna on their site. Todd, do you want to say something about the tower assurance situation?
Yeah, it is I would heavily advise that you get some type of something via an email or a letter or something in writing that you keep with you in case your application is challenged by somebody who says you don't have assurance. And that assurance is as little as just emailing a tower vendor and asking if that tower is available for lease and the elevations on the tower, and they say, yes, it's available for lease, and here's the available heights that you can put something. And I've had contests before of reasonable assurance and provided that information, and the FCC was fine with that type of due diligence.
Okay, good tip. Yeah. And we can help you with, it's just a very basic, I have a 2-sentence, maybe even one sentence letter that if you need something to provide with the person, we can help you with that.
Even if it's just an email exchange, that's all. That's, if you just show an email exchange, say, hey, I want to use this tower. Is this, for a broadcast station, is there space on this tower? And and if we do get granted, would you possibly lease, rent, or whatever to me? And if they say yes, we can. That's usually sufficient enough for site assurance. But yeah, make sure you get that name and that telephone number.
Okay, good. And then we losing control again. Okay, so then you have to find a channel, and this is where you are likely going to work with your advocate or your engineer to find a spot on the dial. Of course, if there's no spot on the dial in your area, you cannot have an LPFM there. That's just pure science. And the bigger cities are going to have less of a chance of having an LPFM available. The more rural areas, you might have multiple channels available, which would be great because if you have competition, someone can move to a different channel. This is, Todd, do you want to explain how you find if a channel is available?
It's all has to do with spacing to other stations. It's we probably don't need to go in deeply, but there's different classes of stations, and they all have protected radius of where you can't apply near them. So you combine all those circles onto a map, and you see if there's a someplace open, and then you can apply for that. If there's a channel 2 channels away and it has a protected contour area over that area, then you need to get a waiver that shows that you're not interfering with that station. And that's mainly what the person you get technical advice from is going to look at those.
Let me just describe this diagram, what's going on here, and then Michelle, I know you have something to say too. So 97.1 FM, that's our channel. We're WXOX. And this is just to show you, you'll hear these terms first adjacent and second adjacent. And when I first got started, I didn't know what the heck that we were talking about. And so basically your first adjacent is the notch on the dial right next to you, your exact neighbor. And the FM dial is you're only going to get point odd numbers. So there are no even numbers there that at least that we're working with. So you go to so for us in either direction, if you just go one notch on the dial, that's going to be our first adjacent. I've got the numbers there. If there is a channel there within our area, we would not be able to apply for an LPFM there. If there is a station on either of the second adjacent channels, so 2 notches on the dial now, then we may or may not be able to have our station there. But we definitely need to have an engineer look at that and provide an engineering study if we want to apply. And if it is possible for us to get in there without causing interference on the second adjacent channels, then we need an engineer to prove that scientifically to the FCC. And that's what we call our engineering waiver, our engineering study. And that will have to be submitted with your application if there is someone on your second adjacent. And your application will be immediately dismissed by the FCC once they start going through things if that's not attached and they feel like you need it. And that actually happened to in my group, we'll talk about MX groups and competition. We had 5 groups applying for 1 frequency when we applied for ours. And one of them did not have their engineering waiver. And we knew immediately that they were going to be dismissed. And sure enough, they were. So don't mess that up. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. What can I just had something. Oh yeah. First of all, as far as where you can go to see what channels are available right now, there's 2 good resources right now that are currently available. The FCC does have a channel search tool, which is pretty much updated. And actually, we're finding it to be fairly reliable. So that's at the FCC. Somebody posted a link to that in the chat. Also, too, Prometheus Radio Project has a channel search that is available that you can go to. And here's the thing is that if you do apply for a channel and you are short spaced, let's say co-channel, same channel or first adjacent, and there is a short spacing there, your application will be dismissed and there's no opportunity to fix it. That's one of the fatals. On second adjacent, the strategy on second adjacent is you want to try, and this is going to sound really weird, but you want to try to get as close to the second adjacent short space station as you can, because that way your station doesn't have to work as hard to try to protect the second adjacent station. Because what we have to do is we have to look at the antenna height, we have to look at the height, the size, the type of antenna. Sometimes we have to use a big larger 3-bay antenna, which may cost about $3,000 and take maybe like 10 or 20 feet of space on a tower, in order to get, in order to get to your station. So there's, so there's definitely some rules there. There's also some additional rules if your station is near an international border. Between the U.S. and Canada, you have to meet third adjacent. You have to meet intermediate frequency, which is like I said, let's not worry about that. That's LPFM 102. Also, another thing is down by the Mexican border, you also have those same requirements. Also, if your station is within 125 kilometers, which I think is about 83 miles or something like that of the Mexican border, you're going to be limited to 50 watts. Because of the international agreement down there.
Okay.
So
interesting to know. Yeah, tons of trivia we're getting tonight.
Sharon, can I just mention
well, yeah, thank you. This is
our
Will, just want to say Will Floyd from Prometheus Radio Project. Will was really involved with the first window, or I guess that was the second window that I met you. So I don't know if you were in the first one or not, because I didn't know about it then.
I was, 12 years old at that point.
Right. Well, great. I'm so glad that Prometheus is jumping in the game again. So good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention and echo Michelle's point that it's important to get assistance for this engineering piece. So we have updated our free. There's a recent update, which is our more extensive tool. So it is operational. You can use it, but we're not supporting it directly unless you want to hire us to do the engineering work. But I would highly recommend hiring an engineer if you can to go through this process. We also have a zip code tool, which is quite useful as well, which you can find on our website. But just wanted to echo that, so that sentiment that Michelle put out there. So.
Yeah, thank you. And Will and Michelle, everybody, we will please make sure all those links are in the chat. I haven't been monitoring that, so make sure all those links are there. And Michelle, also I really find your link to the Nielsen top 50 markets is helpful to tell if people need to be in that 10 or 20 range, mile range. So yeah, make sure all those links are up in there, please.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but since we're an hour in, I just want to make sure, is this going to be sent out, the recording, to the registrants?
Yes.
Registered, because I want to make sure to be able to reflect on this and
sure. Yeah, totally. I understand. And definitely, I think we're getting towards the end, and thank you for at least the general stuff. So thanks for hanging in there. And yes, it will go out to the recipient, the participants afterwards. Thanks for the question. Okay, so all right, this is when you have to apply. This is it. There's no other chance that we know of. If there is, most of the frequencies will be taken up in this window. So even if there is another window down the line, there won't be as many opportunities to get on the airwaves. We do believe that the Christian broadcasters are organizing and probably going to, get in there. So it's not like there's going to be anything left after this. So we need to get nonprofits in the ring, community radio stations on air. It's a fantastic opportunity, but this is it, December 6th through 13th. So there is time, but you need to, we just showed you what you need to get together. You can definitely get that together in a week's time, I would say. The hardest part is going to be finding your tower site, and working with your engineer. And this is just an example of a station that really got it together like incredibly quickly with the help of Prometheus, Common Frequency, and REC Networks. This is WXND in Louisville, Kentucky. It was a station, it was an LPFM station that was, it was a group that they decided they didn't want to continue it anymore. And so instead of giving it back to the FCC, another group in town formed a nonprofit, had one board meeting before the pandemic hit, and then did all the rest of their board meetings and all their engineering assistance and everything across Zoom. And they basically had a year to get on air, and they spent the majority of the year not being able to find, the tower site they wanted. The last month to go, they found like this amazing tower site donated by a local grocery store, Rainbow Blossom Natural Groceries. And they got the thing up and on air about 1 week before, I think it was 6 days before the license was about to expire. So, and they did it all during the pandemic. So it's just kind of one of those stories that if you really want to do something, you can, and WXND is living proof of that. And there's all the equipment you need right by the Christmas tree. Okay, so this is going to get a little technical, and I want to kind of I want to just kind of get through this as quickly as we can and answer the questions at the end. But once you apply, the FCC, maybe a week or so, Michelle, after the window, they'll release names.
The official word should come out. We think it's going to come out about 1 month after the window closes officially from the FCC. REC should have that data in our, what we call our window tracking tool, and that should be available. We're hoping by the weekend after the window. So we should know what we think the MX groups are going to be. Fortunately, with LPFM, it is very easy for us to calculate the MX groups, the groups of mutually exclusive or competing applications.
Right.
And that will be in the window tool, which I'm putting the link in the chat right now.
So yeah, great, thank you. So not too long after you apply, there will be a waiting period, and you'll be like holding your breath to find out who else is applying for your same frequency. And you could either be a singleton, and that means you're the only group that has applied for that frequency. And if everything's in order, you will be granted that frequency. And for the most case, I'm sure there's certain exceptions. And then the MX group is if more than one organization applies for the same frequency. It refers to mutually exclusive, in that if one application is granted, the others are excluded. So, and there's ways and there's strategy, and we can talk about this at the end, that you can either work with these other groups or you can try to knock them out of the water. It's like a big game of croquet, and it can get pretty dirty. These are the points that the FCC will judge you on if you have competition. If you're in a rural area and you're the only group that applies, you don't have to worry about much of this, as long as, again, all your application is in order. But if there is a tie and there's certain groups applying for the same frequency, the FCC will use this point system to decide who gets it. And the first one is a point for being 2 years old or more. So if your organization has incorporated 2 years ago or more, you're going to be good to go to get this point.
And also, too, you have to, your organization has to meet the localism requirement for 2 years. So that means for the past 2 consecutive years from the snapshot date of December 16th, so December 16th, 2021, your organization had to have either been physically headquartered or had 75% of the board members within 10 or 20 miles of the proposed transmitting antenna.
You'll have to pledge local program origination, and that you're going to have at least 8 hours a day of locally produced programming. It does not mean you have to have produced it, but it has to be produced in your community. A main studio pledge, a pledge to have a main studio within 10 miles of a transmitter that is staffed and accessible at least 20 hours a week between those given times, 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. This, I did talk to an FCC, Alex Sangenis at the GRC, FCC representative. I was asking him specifically about schools that may be hesitant to have their main studio just open to the public. And he wrote me back with a very unclear answer, but basically that, a lot of cases we could look at, but his feeling was that, the FCC would be understanding about school taking safety precautions. But it hasn't been tested in court. He was sure to let me know.
Yeah.
Look, you'll get a bonus point for both having a local programming, program origination, and the main studio. And you get a bonus point for having both those items. Diversity of ownership. This is, I know we can get into nitpicky things on this, but already you are going to have diversity of ownership because of what we've discovered before about who can own that.
Right. Pretty much the only groups that will not be able to claim this point are the student stations that are run in the universities where there's a where there's also a full service station licensed to the same university.
So most groups will get that, but most groups will not get the tribal point. So being 50% or more of the organization controlled by tribes or tribe. So that's cool. If you get that one, that's that's really a golden bonus. But most groups aren't going to have that.
But yeah, we always call the local, the established community presence. We always call that over here the coveted fifth point. Because that's the one that's going to get a lot of people, because a lot of people are starting new organizations now, and they're coming in with a disadvantage. And that coveted fifth point is what you want. You want that 2 years local presence.
Todd, do you want to chime in on any of this?
No, this is all fine.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so if you're not 2 years old yet, and you're in an urban area, you may want to consider partnering with an organization that is 2 years old. And eventually, I would recommend going ahead and applying with if you create a new organization, apply with that organization, get a partnering friendly organization to sort of be your big brother, big sister. And if there is competition, if there's no competition, they can withdraw their application. And if there is competition, you will get disqualified anyway, but at least you'll still have a fight with this organization that you're working with. And hopefully you'll have a very friendly agreement and working situation with them. And down the line, either you can work together with them to build the station, or down the line, they can transfer it over to your new organization. But that's definitely something you want to think about. If you're in an urban area and you have a new organization, the chances are going to be pretty tough for you. So anybody want to weigh in on this quickly on this?
That pretty much says it. Again, that's how you get the coveted fifth point, is by if you align up with another organization, just make sure. One of the things we always see is just want to make sure there's no power struggles or anything like that down the road. So you need to make sure that everybody on the board on that other organization is totally on board with what you want to do. Sometimes it's a rogue board member that agrees to let you do it, and then it turns out the rest of the board doesn't want to have anything to do with broadcasting. They don't want the liability, and then that's how we see some of these LPFMs go away. And it's so just be careful who you choose.
Yeah, and they could later down the line be like, oh, well, actually, that's pretty cool. I think we want to do our own radio station, and then you've just given it away. But anyway, it's a lot. There's a lot of strategy here, so it's like again, a game of croquet. Let's see. We could talk more. In fact, I think we should do another webinar later down the line about how you can, use some of the strategy to win your frequency. But it's a lot of fun when you do. This is the LPFM studio that I'm with, WXOX in Louisville, Kentucky. This is our studio before we renovated it, celebrating a big fundraising achievement. But just, it's a ton of fun. It's great community building. We really enjoy it. It's, so wonderful to have this radio station to listen to and all these diverse voices and interesting music. It's just really revitalized our town, and I just think, made it a really exciting creative community. So we've created a website. It's called lpfmresources.com, and it has the basics of applying. A lot of the just very basics that we've talked about here. So if you want to look at that later and have it on a website, you can go there. It's not everything, but just an introduction. And of course, you can look at Radio World magazine. Radio World I've been working on a series with them about building new LPFMs, and they've been doing a number of articles about the LPFM movement. Both Todd and Michelle have been helping me edit those articles. And there's a new book, LPFM for Dummies, just came out. We had a fun release party at the GRC, and Todd and Michelle and the Prometheus Radio Project have all contributed to that. There's just a lot of fun community radio stories in there, and all really just the step-by-step on
it's a great book. It is currently right now the only owner's manual that's really out there for LPFM. A lot of stuff you need to know in one book. Heck, I even learned a few things from that book.
Oh, wow. Amazing. I need to get a quote. Incredible. I can't believe I could teach you something. Well, thank you so much for your contributions to that. It really is a collective community effort, and you'll hear a lot of voices from different community members in there. And I just mention it because we've had a lot of questions. How do I build my radio station, and how do I do this and that and other thing? And finally, we just put it down on the book, so we don't have to just, spend hours telling every single individual how to build their radio station. You can start there and then come ask us questions, or, start on the website, or just do your own research. But please come to us if you have any questions. Todd really knows a lot more about the engineering side of things than I do, and the FCC rules and the ins and outs of it. But he's getting really busy right now with all the applications that he's processing. But here are our emails, and you're welcome to reach out to me anytime. My more specialty is running the station and how to keep the thing going once it's on the air. So I'm happy to help, and answer any potential questions you have about that. And then Michelle Bradley, REC Networks, really great, as you can tell, engineering advice over there.
I just dropped my email in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then Will Floyd and Pablito Baim are the main guys of the Prometheus Radio Project these days. And you heard from Will a little earlier. Will, hopefully your contact is in the chat as well. And I don't know if Michael Brown of Brown Broadcast Services was saying he was going to come, but I haven't seen who else here. But those are some folks I recommend. If there's anyone else on the line that does this kind of work, please let us know, because again, our experts are about to get really busy. So any additional help they can have would probably be great. Let me get out of this thing and we can answer your questions. Okay.
There's a couple questions in the chat already here that we could probably address here. First one is from Sandy. It says, if your board members and your physical headquarters, along with demonstrable community activity, has been for over 2 years in the location where you want to build the station, but you hadn't updated your nonprofit corporate registration from another state, do you get the 2-year community presence point? The way I see it is, in this case, it doesn't matter what state your corporation is incorporated in. For example, for over here, for our radio stuff, we use what's called the Riverton Radio Project. That's our nonprofit. That is a Delaware corporation. We're physically in Maryland. You can get a corporation in another state. Just keep in mind that if you do decide that you do want to conduct business physically in a different state, you may have to also go to your state to get what's called a foreign corporation. The FCC only cares that there's a corporation. They don't care whether it's in the state or out of the state. But if the organization and 75% of the board members or 75% of the board members have been in the local area, the 10 or 20 miles within the past 2 years from December 13th back to 2020, 21, then yeah, you can claim the established community presence point. The other question that came up is from Laura saying, for music, must we subscribe to BMI and ASCAP or ASCAP? For over the air, it's going to be BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC. And if you do decide to stream, that's a separate license, and that's going to be BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, and Sound Exchange, because the recording industry wants their piece.
Okay, so like I was trying to go back to that, there's also another way you can do it through you guys know about Live 365, correct?
Yeah, Live 365 is for streaming. Live 365 will not cover your over-the-air licensing. For what you broadcast on FM, even if you don't broadcast a stream at all, if you're only broadcasting on FM, you're still gonna need a license through ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. Live 365 won't do squat for you on that. Do
you recommend any companies that would do that? All three of those, without going to all three of them?
I think it's easier just to, there are middlemen. Personally, I think it's easier just to work directly with the organizations themselves. You tell them you're broadcasting and they send you a bill and you pay it. That's kind of like how it goes. So it's pretty straightforward.
But do you have to submit over song list and stuff like that?
Yeah, occasionally we have to submit a selection of our song lists to BMI, not to all of them, to Sound Exchange and to BMI. You have to. It's a real pain, but you can use the system. There's different systems you can do to automatically get your song lists. Your program you use to play music might provide it. Spinatron is a husband and wife team, really cool piece of software that will basically listen to what you're playing in a Shazam type of way and create a record of what your station has played and generate that automatically that you can send to the licensing agency. So it's an additional fee, but it makes it a lot easier.
I was going to ask another question. Can LPFMs broadcast national radio shows?
If they are non-commercial.
Okay. So I can broadcast the American Country Countdown.
Here's the thing. Okay, number one, if you get it cleared in your area from the provider, but also the problem is that you can't carry their commercials.
Right.
So that's the key thing, because a lot of times
the commercials are PSAs. Correct.
So a lot of so if they are willing to write you a contract that says, look, we'll let you take out our our national commercials and replace those with PSAs or whatever. You can do that. I would avoid going through national syndicators for the commercial side, because the idea of this service is to not sound like commercial radio stations. There's a lot of great programming that's available right now through Pacifica AudioPort. And you can go to AudioPort, you could become a Pacifica Network affiliate. Normally it's about for most their normal rate is, I think, $500 a year to be a member, and then you have access to a ton of stuff: talk programming, music programming. I just saw somebody on the Solidarity board who's doing a 1 hour a week country show, who just added their programming to AudioPort. And so we get a lot of our programming from AudioPort that we put on our streaming services, Delmarva FM. And once the station comes up here, we'll be using a lot of the music programming from AudioPort for that. So there's definitely resources out there. And I would be more encouraging more local producers, people put shows together for you. Or just within the community. Stay away from the commercial stuff. That's just going to make you sound like the rest of them. That's also going to get you on the radar of the other stations in town, the competing commercial stations.
The only competitive radio station near me is WNEG. That is a classic hit station.
Still, and especially if you start taking underwriting, you start doing underwriting, which is LPFM 102. The smaller the market, the easier it's going to be for you to get nailed if you cross the line on your underwriting acknowledgments. That's where we've been seeing the $25,000 fines. They're not in the big cities. They're not in Los Angeles or New York or Atlanta or anywhere like that. They're in the small towns. They're like in the Grand Rapids, Michigan type places and little and small towns, where this is happening. So yeah, you've got to be careful. And we could do a whole entire thing on that. But again, that's like LPFM 201,
There you go.
Just
to answer the question succinctly, is that there is a lot of programming out there. You don't have to worry too much right now about what your program is going to be. One, you'll have 3 years to decide what your station is going to sound like and do. But there is a lot of community radio programming. We try to have live in-person local DJs as much as possible. Sometimes we need to fill in. But there is a lot of programming out there. And I just wanted to say that an LPFM can rebroadcast the signal of another LPFM station. Like you can't exchange money. You can't have board members that overlap. There's stipulations. But there are potentials, we'd be happy to share our programming with you, and other stations would as well. So I just want to say to people on the line, you don't have to be so worried about how you're going to fill all this airtime. And I've got to move on, Jax, because we've got other people with their hand raised right now. So I'm going to come back to you unless it's like, just really pressing.
I was going to ask one more question about this, okay. But I'm between two markets, Atlanta, Georgia, and Greenville, South Carolina. I don't know which one I should be on because I'm on two.
Oh, hold on, Jax. I'm gonna go ahead and interrupt you right there. I feel like it's getting a little bit deep right now because we've already been here over an hour. So I do want to get to some of the people that have had their hand raised and some of the questions. V has had their hand raised. Do you want to ask your question, V?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for this presentation. This has been really, really informative and very helpful. So I guess I have been this is kind of, I guess, more of like a call out or like question for I am
Kill me.
general manager of
Asking too much.
a college radio station, Dartmouth College Radio. Currently, we're an internet-only radio station. Our commercial station, WFRD, was sold in summer 2021. And we see this as an opportunity to get kind of, I guess, complete the circle, so to speak, of being able to get like student voices on the air and create community radio in the Upper Valley, New Hampshire. And our, I guess, kind of weird conundrum is we are facing some pushback from our college administration about just applying for this, which is very frustrating. But my question being, do you know of any resources or of any potential ways to, like, or if there are any individuals that could help with swaying an institution like that? It's kind of a weird ask, or like to, I guess, call for resources, but just if, or like any recommendations. Like we have a proposal, we have a station engineer who can help us, like who has been helping us fill this out, like totally for free. Like we have a lot of these pieces, but just kind of getting that. And we also have like, we're also trying to, I'll say, like on the side, potentially build, like we're looking into like building a nonprofit of our own just in case they continue to say no. And that also has been, those pieces have been moving. But like in the case of the administration, is there anything that we could maybe look at or try to do, especially in this existing LPFM space?
I'm going to quickly say, I got into this because our college station got sold, WRVU in Nashville, NPR takeover. And we found out about the LPFM movement, and we organized to get an LPFM for that college station to kind of, it wasn't nearly as powerful as what they had before. But now there's WXNA is on the air in Nashville, Tennessee, and that is basically born from the ashes of that college radio station. And it is now, it's not they actually created a separate nonprofit to do that because they did get so much pushback from, well, I mean, the university sold it out from under them, the first one. So they weren't about to let the university hold the second one. So they did form a totally separate nonprofit. It was called WRVU Friends and Family. And I believe Michelle helped with the engineering on that one. And it is now recently, I mean, I think for the past 3 years in a row, it's been voted by the Nashville scene as the #1 radio station in Music City, USA. So they've really like taken that bad moment and turned it into a really amazing LPFM, even though it doesn't have the power that it had before. It's like just really has this amazing community thing. So I don't know that answers your question at all. Universities are really hard to work with, and they can be really, worried about things that don't really matter. Like they're worried about the students they'll make this whole thing like they're worried about the students cussing on the air and getting the fines, when that's not happening very frequently in the FCC world. They'll make up things to be scared about, and then they'll say no. So what you want to kind of think about is everything that they could possibly be scared about, and have a reason why they shouldn't be scared about. That would be one thing I would say. I know Todd's worked with a lot of universities, so I'll let him chime in 1 second. But the last thing I want to say is I'm kind of favoring the idea of developing your own nonprofit and just go for it. And that way that nonprofit holds that license, and the university can't later on down the line get some bureaucratic stuff and they don't like what you're saying or playing on air, and then they decide to sell it out from under you. That's what my feeling. Todd, you've worked with a lot of universities. What do you have to say?
Yeah, that it's a common thing for a university to have a lot of bureaucratic workings and to prevent you from applying for multiple reasons. Um, I learned over the years that at times you can sort of get a reading if a university is going to apply or not, or whether you can sway them. And it's sometimes pretty futile to um, try to convince them at times when there's a definite no from people. Uh, I would just say, even in your area, if there's frequencies open, there's no reason why you can't get together with a few people and just incorporate your own nonprofit and just apply. And you could also have a concurrent um, lobby to get the university to apply to, or the college to apply, that's not going to affect the other application that you're filing. Or you could get an outside nonprofit in the community to apply for you. That just might be the easiest way to do it. I know that kind of sounds strange, but um, I've worked with groups that have incorporated like a week and a half before the filing window and filed, and they received it. And sometimes if there's competition in that area and there's a limited number of channels, you might opt to applying under an established nonprofit. But it doesn't hurt to have a backup plan and pursue a couple things at one time.
Okay, cool. I'm going to move on from that one. There's a good question in the chat. Are there any penalties if you get approved for a license and then you don't go through with it? Todd? No, correct? There's no penalty
No,
if you don't build your station.
it's just handed back to the FCC. They don't care.
Yeah.
The FCC recycles the frequency, or you could transfer it after like 18 months or something.
Dismissal of the application is the ultimate penalty. Cancellation of the license, dismissal, that is the ultimate penalty. But yeah, you're not going to be fined or anything like that if after 3 years you don't build, your construction permit just lapses and it's gone forever.
But the better thing to do would be to find a local nonprofit that you can hand it off to, as we saw with the case of WXND, and give another group the opportunity, because they won't have an opportunity in the future, and it'd be much better to try to find.
Yeah, because I was the one involved with the current rule. I was the one that wrote that, and that was we called it the failing station rule, which basically states that if a construction permit is granted in the first 18 months, you can't transfer it to another organization. But if after 18 months, if that station has not been able to build that station, get that going in a year and a half, at that point, then they can assign the license, the construction permit, to another qualified organization. There are some technicalities if it was part of a mutually exclusive and points were involved, but that's an LPFM 102. That's an issue that will cross if we run into it.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so that's why it's another good idea. Just even, maybe you don't really know that you want to do the station at all, but you want to claim the station for community members, and you think, well, our nonprofit will claim it and we'll apply now, and in 3 years we'll find another station that really wants to do this thing, a community organization. So that is totally something you can do. James asks if he can use an LPFM as a repeater station for his FM station. The answer is that only if your FM station is an LPFM station. Cannot rebroadcast the audio of a full power station.
Yeah. And again, you got to be careful of those cross ownership attributable interest issues. And there's a lot of legalese on that. That's an LPFM 102. But the bottom line is that you cannot have any kind of a real relationship with a second LPFM out there, a management agreement, a time brokerage agreement, an operating agreement. Each station has to be individually controlled. And if they decide, hey, we're going to share some of our programming and we'll run it simultaneously, that's okay, as long as that decision is made independently of the two boards and they both decide, because I mean, that's no different than a radio network.
Mhm.
But there is a specific rule regarding that an LPFM station cannot simultaneously rebroadcast a full service radio station, basically acting like a translator.
If we have people on the line today that this is they're just learning about this now, and they're like, okay, maybe we really want to do this, we're interested in learning more. For one, I just want to say that if you need to form a nonprofit, Todd has alerted me to that you can go to your Secretary of State websites, and almost all of them have a form you can fill out and create a nonprofit. And you can probably create that when you get off the line here in an hour's time or less. As long as you have most states 3 board members. There's some states only require 1, but for the most part, you'll need 3 board members. And we talked about the qualifications earlier, which you can see on that LPFM Resources page also. But you can still do that and make that happen. After that, again, the message seems to be that you want to connect with an engineer or an advocate. Common Frequency and the Prometheus Radio Project are both nonprofits whose main job is helping community radio stations get on the airwaves, and they're definitely willing to help you. REC Networks and Brown Broadcast, as I mentioned earlier, are engineering firms, but they really work with budgets and community stations to help people get on the airwaves. So to you folks, though, what should people do if they're interested? That they send you an email? Todd, let's start with you. For folks who are interested in starting a station, if they haven't connected with you yet, should they drop you an email? What should they do?
Yeah, an email's fine. Or call me. Email's probably best. I can help point you, at least. I can help you or point you to a direction.
Yeah.
That you. I can point you to Michi to help you. I don't know. I would say that the sooner the better, because it's going to be pretty busy within just a week or two, and then the week up to the filing window is just going to be crazy.
Yeah. And we're still just really, though, pushing to get even nonprofits that aren't on the line here, we still want them to know about it. Prometheus Radio Project, Will, are you still on the line? I'm not sure if he had to check out. I think they just reopened that they're accepting new organizations that are interested. So you can go to their website, I'm sure, and find out how. Brown Broadcast Services, again, you can just Google that. I think Michael's actually building a station today out on the field. And then REC Networks, you've had Michelle Bradley, we call her Mishi. Michelle, what's your status? Are you still accepting applicants?
It's we still have a lot of folks that are we're right now working on over 65 applications, 65 groups right now. We are currently at capacity right now. So actually LPFM.app was closed this evening. And so as far as I'm concerned, we're done. We may be able to provide we're going to be looking at the situation, and we may be able to provide some assistance to applicants who are going to do their own application, but still need, for example, the second adjacents waiver reports. We might be able to open that up. So keep tuned to recnet.com, the REC Facebook page, and lpfm.app. And we'll announce that. But as of right now, this very second, we are closed. I also put a link to our FAQ system in the chat. There's a ton of complex questions in there, a lot of different situations. We even get into some of the MX possible scenarios and things like that. So some of you with the really hardcore, maybe LPFM 102 kind of questions and even the 201 kind of questions, you might be able to find your answer in that resource.
And there's also a Facebook page. It's called LPFM Solidarity. And that is mainly for LPFM operators and these folks that are really working hardcore behind the scenes. So feel free to join that and ask lots of great questions there. So please participate in that. Jax, I see you have your hand raised. I just want to give a few other people a chance. If there's anyone else out there that has any questions, we have a great crowd here. We know we have people from all over the country. Some people interested in radio, some people just finding out about this opportunity. Does anybody else have any other questions about the application process or incorporating as a nonprofit, anything like that? Okay. All right. Well, Jax, you got the floor then.
Well, I was going to ask this last question for me.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, I'm near 2 markets. Okay, Greenville, South Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. Which market should I go for? Because I'm near those 2. I'm legitly near them.
Well, I think I can answer this. First of all, you don't need to quote go for a market. Your market is your local area. It's your 3.5 miles around you. That's the area that you need to worry about, not what Atlanta's doing, not what Greenville's doing. Also, too, as far as Nielsen goes, it matters what county you're in most cases. So your county maybe is, and that only has to do right now with the 10-mile rule. So like, for example, if you're in one of the Atlanta metro area counties, then the 10-mile rule would apply versus the 20. Now, is your transmitter site going to be pretty much at your house?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You seriously, listen, you don't have to worry about markets, okay? Don't worry about what Atlanta's doing. Don't worry about what Greenville's doing. Let's worry about what your local community is doing. And that's who you need to focus on. Don't worry about those other guys, because they'll be fine. They'll be fine. They're going to do their own thing, and you're going to be unique in your own community, doing what you want to do, what you need to do for your community. Just keep your community in mind. Don't worry about the big markets, because you're not a part of those. You are your own market.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
And if you're interested in continuing this, LPFM 201 or whatever our next course is, please write your email in the chat over here. If you registered already, we've already got your email, and we'll just send it out to that list again. And if you're like, no way, we don't want to do this, just let me know and I'll take you off the list. If you know someone else that would like to be involved, let us know, because it would be nice to keep this happening throughout the entire application process, just to kind of keep being here to answer your questions and things like that. So we really appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you so much. Again, I just can't emphasize what an important, exciting opportunity this is, how much fun it's been for me personally and for our entire community. It really, you really see people come to life on the microphone. It's just really incredible what they do when you give them an opportunity to express themselves. So, and the things you can do in your community as well, the ways you can really just make things happen. So I highly recommend it.
Can I ask one last question?
Sure, please do.
I've been silent. I've just been sitting here listening to everything.
Okay, thank you for joining.
I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I just ran the zip code, and they said they got maybe 6 frequencies for me. And the last I heard, we only have 3 of these stations here in San Antonio. And so the local council member reached out to me and said, Ron, this would be perfect for you to sign up for this and stuff. So does that matter? There's 3 frequencies. And I just want to make sure that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to be able to get in with the frequencies that they have.
Todd, let me give Todd that one.
Okay.
Because I know he's been looking down and helping folks down in Texas. He knows what's going on. I mean, I know Michelle does too, but go ahead, Todd. Thank you.
I didn't even know there's a frequency in San Antonio, but wait, what was the question? I'm sorry. I'm so it doesn't as long as there's one channel open and you can apply for it, that's what's going to work. You know what I mean? It may not be right where you want it, but it could be on the edge of the city. So I think that's the debate.
Yeah, and also I just want to warn about using zip code searches. What zip code searches do is they search one specific geographic location, that is within the zip code. That does not necessarily represent everywhere in the zip code. You have to get a more precise look at the location that you want to broadcast from the tower site, the antenna site that you want to use. You can use the FCC site is a good way to do that. You'll need to know your geographic coordinates. You can go into Google Earth Pro or somewhere and get those. Or contact Brown Broadcasting or anybody who's currently right now accepting requests, and they could probably do a quick search for you there. So, but yeah, I do know that there's definitely channels available down in that area, down in San Antonio, because that's what just again, they may not be available everywhere because you're probably right on the edge of the availability of some other station. You also have to take into consideration possibly some of the second adjacent waiver stuff that we talked about. I think your best bet is going to be to find out your geographic coordinates and then go to the FCC's LPFM channel finder and see what's exactly is available. You may have 3 channels, you may have 6. The nice thing about that is let's say there's 3 applications. Let's say there's 3 available in your area. 3 applicants file. They all just happen to file for the same channel. There will be an opportunity down the road that you might be able to move to the other channel. What you may want to do too is get in touch with these other applicants and see if they're willing to cooperate and maybe reach a settlement and say, look, here, I'll stay on, you stay on 92.9, I'll move to 103.7, and the other guy can move to 106.3. I'm just using those numbers just random.
Yeah.
But you might be able to you might be able to reach that. Again, that is a post window. I think what we're going to need to do is after, and Sharon, I think after this window is over with, that's when we should have our LPFM 102, which will be the post window. Okay, what now? And then we can actually maybe have a deep conversation. And by this time, everybody will know where everybody's going to be. And we can actually go into these MX groups and actually look at them and see what their options are and maybe discuss them in a webinar. So that's something I think maybe we should look at for maybe sometime in January or something.
Yeah, I like that. We'll do that for sure. I think that's a great
All right,
idea.
thank you.
Just to follow up, once, I didn't mean to discourage you. If you email me your address, I'll go look and see what's around you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because as I said, I think a lot of people, if they're just getting into this, they don't know what their exact tower site will be yet. They just want to know if there's going to be something available in their area. So in which case, would you all just recommend just picking your own personal address to type into the finder just to see what's out there, or what would you recommend?
That's always a good start. But again, your mileage may vary. And so for some folks, yeah, some of our foot draggers that we have over here, some of them that are still in stage, there's a few still in our earliest stage 2, which is they haven't found their tower or site assurance. The problem is finding a tower, and some folks don't have the property to do it, or they can't get the zoning to do it. So they're having to go out to the leased tower companies like American Tower, Crown Castle, SBA. The problem is they're going to want a lot of money up front and a lot of contracts and stuff like that. But some of these, I work with, or some of these ministries and stuff like that, they are very deep pocketed. And apparently the money comes from somewhere. I don't know where, but it does come from somewhere. So these are some of the things that you gotta, and keep in mind that if you're in a second adjacent situation, you may not have the very convenient option of being able to put the antenna on the roof of the house. That is, unless you are right next to your second adjacent short space stations, that's the only way that's going to happen. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at towers. And then once you're dealing with cities, you're now dealing with zoning. You're dealing with land use. You're maybe dealing with a 45-foot restriction. You may be dealing with permits and stuff like that. So, and then for the second adjacents that are not that, that are not going to be that good, there's a lot of there's a whole can of worms around all that. And again, the closer you are, the easier, the less your station has to work hard to protect. Again, it depends on your exact situation. One thing Todd can look at is on a location because he can do the contour studies and see who your second adjacent stations are, what kind of signals they put in at your proposed location. And then that could give us an idea of what kind of antenna and what kind of height you would need in order to achieve a second adjacent waiver at that location.
But as we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of commercial towers around, American Tower, and you don't need to actually get into any contract with them. You just need to get them to send you an email that they're willing to work with you if you get your license and give you spot on the antenna. So in worst case scenario, if you can't find someone that'll do it, you can, get something like that from one of those companies, submit it with your application, and then down the line find a better tower site for you that won't be quite as expensive.
Yeah, I just posted a link to our tower find site, recnet.com/tower find. It's kind of cryptic, but you put in your geographic coordinates and you put in a search radius like 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers, whatever. The FCC works everything in metric, by the way. When you're dealing with this service, you are playing in metric. And it will show you all the registered towers. Now, of course, not all those towers may be available, but some of them will say, yeah, these are American Tower, these are SBA, these are Crown Castle. And then you can call those companies and say, look, I found a tower that's near me. It's FCC number 1234567. Is there space available on that tower? And if so, what levels, what heights?
And one thing I wanted to say too about if you think you'll have competition in your area for a frequency and there might be multiple frequencies, if you can find out who that competition might be through the grapevine or whatever other way, and if you're able to have a friendly conversation with them and convince them to go for a channel that you're not going for, and you know that way you're not going to create competition for one another. We did that a little bit in Louisville, although not everyone was so forthcoming, surprisingly.
No.
So let's see, any other questions out there? We've got a lot of people thinking out there trying to decide, what they want to do or if they're going to go for it or not. Anything else we can answer? Are there any other LPFM folks on the line that want to chime in and say, I know a few people are chiming in from other LPFM stations. If you want to say anything about your station or what the journey's been like, you'd be welcome to. I don't want to keep anybody too late. It's almost 2 hours already. So we will, again, share this recording and you'd be welcome to share it then with other people that might be interested. But time is absolutely of the essence. Unfortunately, we don't have more time on this. The government does not look like it's going to shut down. So it looks like we're full steam ahead for December 6th through 13th for the low power FM application window. I highly encourage you to do it. Why not go for it? There's no penalty if you don't go through with it, and it might be a really great thing for your community. So
the worst the FCC can do is say no.
Exactly. So thank you to Michelle Bradley of REC Networks, Todd Urick with Common Frequency. Will Floyd was on from the Prometheus Radio Project as well. So and thank you all for joining, and thank you for even considering. And please reach out with any questions, and we'll definitely do LPFM 102 in January.
And for those of you who get a grant, please have a very safe construction.
There we go.
Thank you.
Wisdom. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night from Riverton.
Good night.